Second, I'm gonna do it.
I'm lighting a candle.
Yeah, you light a candle. Kurt, we'll look at.
Cleared up the land. Said it was freedom. Said it was planned.
Yeah.
Now there's
This is the best AI I've heard in a while.
It's
probably the best one you've done.
Don't you understand?
They blew up Gaza.
Built a
Shopping mall.
No more Palestine, just casinos.
You're really proud of this one.
Came in with a red ball. They blew up Gaza for a shopping mall.
I like Miley Cyrus. I'll admit it.
The olive trees, the ancient stones.
Yo, I'm thinking about trying to start the terrorist radio station. I'm gonna need like original music from both of you guys and also
I
other friends.
got thousands of AI songs now.
Cool.
I have one extra song that I was just working on that's not going to be released anywhere. So that's a nomination.
Yeah.
Build a shopping mall. I can't wait, honestly. I think the Riviera of the Middle East is going to be grand. Some of my favorite people are with me. Welcome to APM or Ubermeme. This is Kurt, American Time Machine, and Chris, Terrorisk. How are you guys doing? What's up?
I'm doing good. Just trying to catch up with the latest current events of the world because I've just been in my own little world. So
right, and checking out like the dank memes and like the deeper philosophies of them because this show really is called. Yeah, I won't do the whole thing this time. We'll save it for later. But yeah, that's nice to be able to. We need like a soundboard with buttons that we can push in general. Well, let me go to Psyche Meme really quickly and Xirtus Futura.
It's funny you say that. I was actually because I have a whole mixer set up, so I was gonna plug in my machine so I could do like funny sound bites, like the smoke detector beeping sound. That would have been funny.
That is nice. Okay, so Yo Dog, we heard your mRNA vaccine gave you cancer, so we developed a new mRNA cancer vaccine to cure your cancer. Waka waka, the sweet pickle meme. What else did we see recently? Oh, this is one of my favorite pop quizzes. Which one of these girls had their dress paid for by the Hillary Clinton Foundation? Oh yeah, it was Chelsea Clinton. That's how that went. It's been a fun week to look at all these memes, and I mean it's getting kind of hyper political, which is fun. We also had some good Psyche memes going on, the red and the blue pill reality, seek professional help, Anakin. Where do you guys want to start? Super Bowl and swastikas, or where do we even go? Let's start with what you think. What are you feeling?
Sorry, Kurt, go ahead.
Oh, sweet. All right. First, I'm gonna be that guy. My final my final project it's an album of 3. It's going to come out starting on Friday. That's the 14th. Yeah. If the company gets to it, if they do the inspection in time, it'll come out Friday, but look for it soon. It'll be a series of 3 albums. The world will never be the same after they come out. It was one big, huge, giant concept, I guess, and that's sometimes when people do concepts it sounds just horrible, like, oh, you're one of those guys, you did a concept album, but I promise a lot of work was put into it, and I think it's really good, and it's just like exponentially hard to do these types of things the more I go on, and that's part of the reason I'm taking a big long brain drain break from it.
It's been really hard ever since the USAID canceled their finances to American Time Machine.
Yeah, exactly.
If this new album gets 10,000 streams on the first day of launch, I will show my boobs real hard on stream.
Yeah.
No, it should be a lot of fun. There's no words in I guess you could say there's no words in the entire thing. So it's all just a musical album. You can do it while you're playing chess. You can do it while you're playing GOAT format Yu-Gi-Oh! You can do it during all sorts of things. The whole thing, you'll know which 3 go together. You're supposed to listen to it front to back, and it'll be like an hour and a half. And I think it's really easy to see the themes, and I think there's a lot of cool themes in there. All right, on to the Super Bowl. Sorry for plugging that. Kendrick Lamar did the Super Bowl, and I've actually watched a couple videos about his whole beef with Drake, and I've got to say, I felt like there were some low points during the halftime show where a lot of it wasn't that exciting, like his song with SZA. I don't think it was that great, but that's just me. I like Kendrick. I wish someone like Vince Staples would do a halftime show. I love Vince Staples, and I think he's I don't know. It's hard to comment fully.
I want to comment on it on the halftime show. I feel like the show was almost geared as if it was expecting a Kamala victory. I know I've noticed that with a lot of movies and shows, even like they just came out, and I'm like,
towards Taylor Swift and the Chiefs winning, everyone else surrendered so the Chiefs would be there, and they thought that the only way that people in a Biden, Clinton, Kamala economy would even give a damn about the Super Bowl anymore is if they changed it to not be about football. And you could tell they've been gradually moving away from football, trying to convince you care more about the commercials than the football. And that really, the entire stage, sorry to interrupt you, but did you see the stage that they had? The Super Bowl stage was the world map, essentially. Let me see if I can find the example of it.
Oh, no, there was a whole lot of symbolism in a lot of people talk about the symbolism, and honestly, like, I think what's ironic is like the whole show was kind of criticizing the system, but the Super Bowl is like the pinnacle of the system that they're criticizing, and they're participating in it. So it's hard to get like across like their message, of turn the TV off. Is like, are people actually going to do that? Probably not. But anyway, I do think it was very good, and it's really funny to call like a superstar a pedophile on live television. That's pretty funny.
But also, sorry, Chris, I interrupted you. You were about to say, because you felt like they were gearing towards a Kamala win, and
yeah, but I don't think it's gonna last that long. I think like by like springtime, like shows and movies are gonna start reflecting more of a Trump America. I think
it's so happening. Yeah, there's very, very little left. I wish I could find the world map that I saw earlier. That's kind of frustrating.
Fast, yo. You gotta adapt ruthlessly.
But then also, yeah, the Yeezy thing happened. So Tobias, my Austrian, I'll call him a friend because I did work with him in the past, and you got to be nice to people. And he's so upset about the audit. It's like, no, you can't have an independent audit of the federal spending. That's illegal. Right? That's kind of where a lot of people are at, and they keep saying that these people are Nazis. And I thought that was interesting because, Germans and Austrians trying to constantly use the Nazi bat and saying that all these people are Nazis. I mean, it's like, how can you constantly call everyone a Nazi all the time and not expect that eventually Kanye West is going to start saying he is one? And we're at a new time, because up until maybe November, people were just, if you don't do what we say, you're a Nazi. That's it. If you're not with us, you ain't black, you're a Nazi. Like, that was how things went. And so they're constantly trying to tell you how bad the Nazis were, but saying you are one. And more and more people are, I think, over it. You can literally now talk about the Nazis. You can do it. You can say, this is what they did. This was Hitler's 5-year plan. This guy called me a Nazi. This guy called me a Nazi. See, nobody cares. Nobody cares that you called me a Nazi. We're over it. Which is so, like, I mean, when black rappers with autism think they're Nazis, your whole thing is dead. You can't even use that word the same way anymore, right? And then so somebody keeps trying to push up this idea that the economy in Germany, because like I was trying to explain, well, hey, you're talking about the 53 days it took for the Reich to destroy or dismantle democracy. That's the whole point of his little article here in his argument. Like, wow, how horrible is it? It was so quick. They engulfed the Reich, and there was nothing left of the democracy that existed. February 18th, my birthday, Volksche Zeitung wrote that despite Hitler's campaign promises and political posturing, nothing had changed for the average German citizen. This is this big conspiracy. Well, I posted this article back to him from the BBC, talking about the actual truth, which, love him or hate him, from the Reich in World War I to 1938, Germany transformed itself from Uganda-like economy, where it cost 2,000 marks or 200,000 marks, 2 wheelbarrows full of marks of money for a loaf of bread. That's where things were at with hyperinflation in World War I. And by 1939, the economy was flat. People could buy bread. Germany was highest employment of its citizens of any country in Europe and indeed the world. I think the United States competed because we had our own national socialist plan under FDR where we produced as many jobs, forced people to get jobs, right? It was crazy under the socialist after 1929. Everybody was a socialist. Every dictatorship was a socialist dictatorship. But Germany had the rad public works system, which was super rad, right? And it kind of built this economy up so fast that, I mean, how much do you hate Germany? Because of how successful they were. They were so powerful. They had so much money that they could actually build better tanks, better guns, better outfits, better, the militarization thing. And everyone's upset, like, well, wait, hey, they had all that money. Why didn't they give it to the people? It's like, why were they militarizing? It's like, well, gee, I wonder why. I wonder why Germany felt like they had to build a military to defend itself during limited exports, imports, when Germany was being squeezed at all ends from the East and the West, from the Soviet dictatorship, the American oligarchy, and the British Empire. I wonder why this democratically elected government ended up where it did. And you know what? After 39, because they had not enough resources, that's when they started to invade and try to annex former territories that had been stolen by them. The point being, Germany was doing pretty well by 1939 until the entire world went to war with them and suffocated them from all ends. And I'm just going to say it. Jacob here says, again, a myth. Look it up. Wealth under the Nazis shifted towards the top. Workers got less money, to which I said, trust me, you don't want people to start talking about the myths about the Nazis. Just saying. I don't know. So that was my Super Bowl.
So I guess the Nazis weren't so bad after. I'm kidding.
Well, that's not what we're talking about. That's the funny thing. Like, regardless of how good or bad. No, I mean, it's important to bring that up too, because just because a bunch of people are mass murdering fuckheads, or or not, or like they're just monstrous people, right? Because I think if you go to Germany and you ask kids about their grandparents or their great grandparents, they're like, oh, they must have been shadow figures, these vampire werewolves in these skull caps, with these skulls on their thing. The way that people think that the Nazis were is completely inhuman.
Like evil space marines.
You shouldn't dehumanize people. If there's one lesson you need to get from the Reich, it's that you should not dehumanize people, right? Like, if the Germans had worked with the Jews, the Germans would have won the war. As simple as that. The Jewish scientists who worked on nuclear technology would have instantly given Germany an extreme benefit. But the dehumanization and saying, well, these people aren't really German, and they're therefore not really people, not like us. I mean, that's what destroys anyone's chance of progress, right? So, yeah, we can agree that they were terrible and that they made horrible decisions and mistakes. Even if you're like, a Holocaust denier, you should still admit, like, even at that level, you should still admit that the Jews would have been far better as an ally than not for the German people. So they definitely screwed up. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the collapse of Germany in World War I. This is before there was any anti-Semitism that was prevalent in bureaucracy. Or if it was everywhere. Because if you went to England, they were anti-Semitic. If you went to America, they were anti-Semitic. They surely were anti-Semitic in Russia. And when they sent the Jews out of Russia in the pogroms to the United States, well, that's why you had so many. When people talk about Jews running, the entertainment industry, well, there was no other jobs that they could get. They came to America and they ended up working together to build the industry.
Hollywood is the real Jewish Palestine.
Well, they created this place. They created it to get away from the New York unions. Yeah. And they did. I mean, so like you can say, oh, well, it's weird to say that it's overrepresented, because if you make something, it'd be like if I went to Chris's house, I was like, wow, Chris's house, really, it's overrepresented by Chris's things. It doesn't have enough of my things in Chris's house. It's like, well, it's Chris's house. Chris built that house.
I think the Jews are doing they're doing a good job with the entertainment industry. Actually,
it's not the only thing that they do, but if you remember, at a time they couldn't be bankers, even if they were accountants. They couldn't do accounting, and they had to work doing very little, and a lot of the time you had the 6-year-old son of a Russian Jewish family, and they would be selling newspapers at 5 o'clock in the morning, and then they would be working in vaudeville handing out flyers, and then they would be bringing bananas or their sister to the place where they made the textiles. And so Jewish kids had the jobs because they had to very quickly adapt and learn how to speak English, and as well as a Protestant Irish American who were very racist and didn't want people taking their jobs and were trying to keep out any immigrants, particularly Jewish immigrants. So it's just like they didn't have any other option but to build that particular industry. And as time went on, there's other industries, there's other educations, and now anyone can do any job that they want to do. But that's the reason why it's the way it is, right?
I also think the Nazis kind of missed the mark when they were trying to quote unquote wipe out the Jewish people. Like it's
well, literally,
there's this whole misconception, right? That like what really makes the Jewish people closer to God was it the body? Was it the blood? No, it was the word. You know, it was them being so adherent to specific laws that actually gave them like the mind body framework and the soul framework to be able to live like that kind of life. And it also like gave them genuine superpowers in a way. And like the problem is like, you know, you would think that that's in the blood, but it's not. It's a set of laws that you follow, which is why, like, you know, in a way, like Christianity was probably traumatic for the Jews. They're like, wait a minute, that's our shit. And you're just saying it's for everyone now. And Jesus was like, supposedly like, yeah. But apparently, like, I think that's what the Nazis got wrong. They thought they could wipe out Judaism by wiping out the people. You can't. You have to wipe out the idea. And the communists got it right. The communists knew better because they were the ones that were like, oh yeah, the word is the problem here, you know, not necessarily anything like material.
I think I saw this earlier in 175 AD. Celsus remarked that, sorry, let me get that a little bigger there. Celsus remarked that Christianity was primarily being spread by Jewish evangelists targeting gullible, uneducated women, prostitutes and slaves, and children in private away from the husband. That's, you know, I think in a lot of ways true. You saw this maybe Lily, the 1,000-man prostitute on OnlyFans, a sex worker, whatever you call her. She had a conversation with Russell Brand while he drank Mexican water and talked about Jesus. And, you know, he was saying that there's a plan for you and all this stuff. And it's like, this is what they do. They tell people that, you know, you can be forgiven for being a slave or a prostitute and redeemed and all that. And it completely replaces. I mean, I think there's truth to this, but it's not exactly the Jewish tradition. The Jewish tradition is to try to follow the rules and try to become bettered by the rules. And you can hear this in Jewish music because you listen to Jewish music and it's like, I love life, I love women, I love wine, I love dancing. Thank you, God, for making all these cool things.
It's pretty Greek, actually. Sounding
very existential. And then, like, you listen to Christian music. It's like, I just can't wait to die.
I'm a bad boy. I'm so bad. Please,
I'm a naughty boy. And if you like take me with you, God, it's like, just let me die and I'll be happy. It's like this. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why like emo, hardcore, and punk rock comes out of Christian white, puritanical stock.
But I do think for a
second. Just kidding.
It is based on a set of laws, but I do believe that there is something to like maybe like the blood of Solomon or the blood of like the old kings and stuff like that. Like there's probably some if these figures did exist, something going on, you know, like. But I think like, you know, generally speaking, you get the rules, you follow them, and I don't know, supposedly. And the idea is even like amongst the Jewish people, there's so many laws. Like you can't accept every single one of these people to follow all of these laws. Like that's not really reasonable.
Right. Well, I think it's also just important to separate things. So what the Zionist Israelis are doing today is not what the pre-Deuteronomists were doing in the kingdom of Judea and the 12 tribes. And then after Josiah, a lot of Jews were killed by Jews, right? Because the Jewish kingdom of Jerusalem was like, we're the top Jews here, and you're all sub-Jews, Unter-Jews. You guys are going to end up worshiping at our temple. You don't worship at your temple anymore. That's it. We're not having 12 tribes have 12 temples. You're coming to the main temple, and you're going to use the main temple's money because, you know, you're going to have to pay for your forgiveness to buy our chickens. You can't use your chickens. And you can see this in the Bible because there's a certain point where sacrifices by the Jewish people, like for instance, Noah makes a sacrifice and Moses has a sacrifice. This stuff's all written out of the Bible. We have it today, but at the time, the Deuteronomists didn't want anybody who wasn't an Aaronic priest, right? The brother of Moses is Aaron, and they think that there's different tribes, and different tribes have different roles. And the Cohen priests who now are the lawyers today, the Cohens were the only ones allowed to do sacrifices. And so they basically said, no one's ever done a sacrifice except for us. Let's just get rid of any example of anyone ever doing a sacrifice before, because you can't unless you're us. And it wasn't like that before. So at a certain point, you have Deuteronomists and you have Zionism, because Zionism has to do with the diaspora. And this changes everything in the Ashkenazi sector, because then you have racism between the Ethiopian Jews, the Sephardic Jews, the Mizrahi Jews.
Now, instead of sacrifices, we have like pro MMA fights and Super Bowls.
You still have sacrifices. If you're in New York, like you can go see Jews take chickens and kill them over their heads. Have you seen the chicken sacrifice? Yeah. So like they want the chicken sacrifice for the Jews is this idea that you kill an innocent life, but you do it right over your head. And that way God can't really tell that you're alive. He thinks, something died in the same place as you. So you have this kind of like glitch in the matrix where something died right where you died. And so essentially it's like the universe doesn't realize you didn't die. It was the chicken that died. And so you get forgiven. It's a weird hack. Basically.
Apparently, so you create like a little tiny dot in the causal mesh of like different causalities rippling and bouncing off of each other, and then you get to like create a little wrinkle in that, I guess.
Right. Yeah. So I think it's kind of interesting. But yeah, so you can't say that the Jews today are the same as the Jews of yesterday. You can't pretend that they're all believing the same thing. The language that they created in the 19th century is the same because it's an Arabic-based language the Spanish Jews were using. We don't know as much as we'd like to. Mormons will talk about it. It's one of the reasons I do the shows. They talk about Elohim being plural and how the Jews used to worship the family and the wife of God. And the menorah is actually a symbol for the wife of God. It's the tree with the different lives, the different emanations of God, the children of God, right? And this was all erased from the Jewish religion. And then so to say that that's not cool just because you don't like what's going on today in the Zionist state of Israel, well, they're completely separated things. It's the same thing, I think, in a lot of ways with the Germans, because to pretend that everything that the Nazis did is the same, well, they built a state, they had a horrible economy, they fixed their economy, and then they became extremely nationalistic, Eurocentric, imperialistic, and were dealing with people around them trying to kill them. And so you have to separate what happened right at the beginning from what it led to. At the same time, you can be careful. You can say, well, look, hey, Germany led down this road. We should be careful about that road. I think that's completely reasonable. And people should do the same thing with the United States. We should be careful about where we're headed. And I think it's interesting that the pendulum has already started to swing. We've gone to transgendered transvestites reading to kids in libraries with dildos on their heads, to Super Bowl swastika t-shirt commercials already,
Well, supposedly in the cycle, what comes next? It's like the rise of a Caesar-like figure before the collapse of the civilization. Supposedly, like the pattern for all civilizations is they get to peak expansion and money becomes like the rule, the law, and then corruption like just becomes so you can't stand, to the point where the people can't stand it. And then eventually a Caesar-like figure arises and then just closes out the loop, I guess, in the final act.
Seems like we're
past it.
That's what we're doing right now. Yeah. I don't know.
And it's not going to be Trump. It's probably going to be Elon Musk. More people are talking about Elon Musk than our own president. He just crashed the White House and everything.
I think they want people to do that, though. I think they're really trying to upset Trump. They're like, what does Trump care about? Well, he thinks he's the most important figure, so let's make him feel like people think someone else is more important than him. If they can get him to hate Elon Musk and to fire him because he's jealous of him, then they'll have won this war, they think. Because, Trump needs Elon Musk and the Doge department to really do their job. So they're trying so hard to make them hate each other, but I don't think it's working at all. Trump has Elon Musk under his finger, living at Mar-a-Lago, doing as he says. I mean, there's definitely also the irony that Trump spent the first term of his election trying to get rid of Obama for his African birth certificate, and now has the country being run by an African American born in Africa. It's like from Obama to Elon it's pretty funny. I think that Trump did that. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like a inverted jester take on it.
Feels like.
But I don't know. I mean, Elon Musk is kind of like the perfect tool or the right hand, because he's like the kind of guy, he already has like 12 kids or some crazy number like that, and he supposedly doesn't even have a house. Like he's just like, yeah, I don't really own a home. Like what's the point? I have billions of dollars. Like he's kind of like Napoleon, you know, with his relationship to the emperor or whatever.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe I feel like he's trying and should try to sidestep being an emperor, because being an emperor is basically a decent retirement position, but it's a good way to die. And so the more you're the guru for the king, the better you are off. You know,
like Rasputin.
Let somebody who wants to be king do that. Like if you want to be the Red Power Ranger because you need that so bad, good. We need someone like you to stand in the front of everyone else and take the crossfire. And Trump's an old guy, you know, he's old. He's smarter and more powerful than a lot of people his age, but he's a guy who definitely is, you know, there's a lot of other people he can set up and prop up right now as he's starting to like retire or to die out or to fade into the light. I mean, he's already, I know that sounds like crazy.
Well, actually,
but
you bring up a good thing about like, I guess a good point about leadership. I suppose it's like, you know, a lot of like managers, for example, at retail locations, like if you're the owner of a chain and these managers are like afraid to be worked out of a job. Meanwhile, as a manager, I think like that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to put yourself out of a job. You're supposed to like set up your shop so that you don't even have to be there, you know, so all your people could handle it. And then like, that's how you, I guess, as a leader, develop leaders. And then those people develop people. And that's how you become like larger than life, I suppose. I mean, I think like any smart like leader would do that. So if maybe that's what Donald Trump always does, because, you know, like if you groom people under you, like proteges, you know, like that's how you keep the chain going, I guess.
Right. Then you saw the judiciary branch, these judges that are trying to block all of the examinations of the fraud, right? And so Elon Musk asking federal judges who repeatedly abuse their authority to obstruct the will of the people via their elected representatives should be impeached. I think a lot of people said yes to that, nearly 90%. Some people said no, though, which I think is really interesting. And there are people that really are saying that this is this crazy thing that the American people could actually audit the government and see where their money's going. I mean, how crazy is this that they don't want people to see where their money's going? I mean, how are they getting away with that?
I mean, I always like pushing the meme. I mean, I guess I'm semi-serious about like the whole metaphor of Elon being the Antichrist, you know, like the figure coming out doing these supposed miracles. He's like, look, I'm making everything better. I'm showing you guys, I'm exposing things that you want to know.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like he's even said, like if we have fraud, it should be at least for Americans. It shouldn't be that we're defrauding the American people to give money to other countries. We should at least keep the fraud in the United States, which I thought was funny because he's kind of joking, but like, is he? He's saying, look, there'd be so much money that we could actually we could have more efficient fraud. We could have certain groups make tons of money, and then we wouldn't have to waste it on everything else. Here, let's just
now,
really quickly.
Before I take questions, I would like to address an extremely dishonest narrative that we've seen emerging over the past few days. Many outlets in this room have been fear-mongering the American people into believing there is a constitutional crisis taking place here at the White House. I've been hearing those words a lot lately. But in fact, the real constitutional crisis is taking place within our judicial branch, where district court judges in liberal districts across the country are abusing their power to unilaterally block President Trump's basic executive authority. We believe these judges are acting as judicial activists rather than honest arbiters of the law. And they have issued at least 12 injunctions against this administration in the past 14 days, often without citing any evidence or grounds for their lawsuits. This is part of a larger concerted effort by Democrat activists and nothing more than the continuation of the weaponization of justice against President Trump. Quick news flash to these liberal judges who are supporting their obstructionist efforts. 77 million Americans voted to elect this president. And each injunction is an abuse of the rule of law and an attempt to thwart the will of the people. As the president clearly stated in the Oval Office yesterday, we will comply with the law in the courts, but we will also continue to seek every legal remedy to ultimately overturn these radical injunctions and ensure President Trump's policies can be enacted.
So let's fire all them judges, yo. We don't need those guys. We don't need those people. Let's just get rid of the whole federal court.
I like her. That's part of my conspiracy, because the idea that if Trump's won 3 elections and he knew it, then the second time he won in 2020, he was like, you know what? It'd be better if I waited. You know, you guys can just coast. I'll run the military secretly. You guys just have Biden coast this for the deep state while we dismantle the deep state. We've already won, let's assume. And that in 2024, 2025, he gets elected 2025, he's able to replace the director of national intelligence, the FBI chief, all these positions that are opening up, and then there's judges to replace as well. So things are moving so fast. It just seems to me like he picked the perfect time to be way better to be president in 2025 than in 2020, because there's all these positions that he can replace, and there's not going to be anything left. The other thing that's funny is that they're saying we want to stop Doge because Doge is going to shut down these social services. There's no evidence for that. There's no evidence that, Doge is making sure that Social Security works, that the Treasury works, that the Department of Education isn't wasting money. But what it really could do would be even cooler, which is to shut down and replace these things. If we were to replace Obamacare with MAGA care or Trump care, or whatever you call it, the Republicans invented Social Security. So if you were to cancel and forgive student debts, replace Obamacare, and audit the Fed to fix taxes, right? Especially. But what are the issues? What are the pet causes of the Democrats? Because once you offer everyone health care, if we have a universal Republican health care and we have fixed Social Security and we forgive student debts, like what reason left will there be for the DNC to exist? Because the DNC won't. What's the point? What are they going to fight for if we give them everything if the American people that we're fighting for them get everything that they've been promised for 40 years, 100 years by the Democrats, if we just give it to them, social health care, etc., well, what's left of them? In
terms of I guess a philosophical probability, because I can't tell the fucking future, but I could say in a world where everyone's basic needs are met with little to no effort, then it's just going to boil down. I guess you're going to have that Ubermensch / Untermensch situation where it's there's going to be you either the type to be able to master yourself, where if you're given free time for the rest of your life, what the fuck are you going to do with that? Some people really are going to just completely destroy their lives. Other people are going to completely flip their shit, to some nth degree of ascension. Who knows? I don't know. But I do know that that would radically change things, because when you make people suddenly live in abundance from scarcity, who knows what that'll happen? Because a lot of the fabric of our society is held together by scarcity, the concept of scarcity, oh, you better not do this or you'll get your freedom taken away, or you better not do this or you'll get your money taken away, or your food or whatever. So yeah, it's that being said, if there were some way to give us money, you could do what fucking Andrew Yang said about a freedom dividend. If we don't like the term universal basic income, then just give us a fucking dividend of the most profitable
of the sovereign wealth fund.
Yeah, the most profitable corporation in the world is America, right? It's the biggest conglomerate.
We're bigger than a corporation because we're a state, so we have a monopoly of violence. So the sovereign wealth fund, this idea that we would produce an anti-tax, a system. This is what Trump's promised. He's promised a sovereign wealth fund. And this would be an anti-tax where citizens are paid a dividend for being citizens. This is essentially Roman imperialism, right? It's what happens in Norway and Denmark. A lot of these Scandinavian countries have sovereign wealth funds. It's a brilliant idea. And yeah, if a government could be solvent, and this is the thing everyone always says is governments just take money and they don't make money. Well, turn it around. A government could make money if it was efficient. And if that were the case, then why would you take money from the people? And they do, right? The government makes money and takes money. So what do we have to do to fix that? Especially when you look at, you can't have your student loan forgiven. What are they trying to entrap people into? What kind of an economy do they want? An economy where people feel like they have to be making hundreds of thousands of dollars all the time in order to make up for being debt slaves? We have to fix that, right? So, yeah. And also, Kurt, what do you think about this idea of the social? No worries, Kurt. Do you have thoughts on the sovereign wealth fund and anti-tax and Social Security from Republicans?
Oh boy, a lot of thoughts there. No, I just don't have opinions on all of those. Sometimes if you try to tinker too much, it's just like you're just trying to control things. But all right, so Trump is like a lot more communist than people realize. That's one point that I think gets overlooked a lot. Like, and I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing. I'm saying that sometimes a lot of people everywhere are just very, very, very stupid, and that's okay. You're supposed to care about stupid people. You're supposed to care about things in general. That's good karma. But like the whole thing with tariffs are extremely anti-capitalist, and so if you believe, if you're got like semi-communist like me, you're like, oh, that's a good thing, because like it encourages isolationism, and it actually encourages, you know, third world, you know, child labor. Like, where are all the people that are advocating against child labor being like, yeah, tariffs, you know, less, you know, 8-year-olds picking, you know, cocoa or whatever, however they harvest it, you know? There's a whole,
you want tariffs on cocaine? That's a good idea.
No, like the larvae for actual cocoa. Yeah. However it's harvested, you know. Now, if you go down a rabbit hole on that, you actually realize the companies that try to make, you know, ethical chocolate, they still have like a you know, subtext that says we still actually can't ensure that child labor isn't happening because it's actually really hard. You know, it's like that's just the product of outsourcing. If you outsource almost anything, it's almost impossible to fully keep track of whether child.
What if you're not against child labor? Now, like, hear me out. I'm not. I am against a lot of things, right, about child labor. Like, I don't think exploitation of anybody, particularly children, is a great idea. I don't think that unsafe work environments are acceptable for any. I'm a Trotskyite, right? I think everyone should have safe working conditions. I'm even Fordian in some respects. Ford brought in. He saw that there were people that were lifting car parts and they were super heavy, and then he's like, if we get a wire, we can just, like a clothing hanger, like a clothing line, we could just move metal across the wire. We can move car parts, and we can make, instead of a guy moving one an hour, we could have 100 cars produced in a day. You know, I think we should work on efficiency, and we should make it so easy to work in a Ford factory that a kid could do it. I think that's a great thing. I don't think kids should necessarily work, but I think that if they want to work, like, I mean, are you against kids selling newspapers? I mean, I know that's not even a thing anymore, but there was a time when and we talked about this earlier, that Jews came from Russia and they couldn't speak the language, and they forced their 5 to 6-year-old kids to support the entire family because only the kid could learn English fast enough to get some sort of a job, right? So I don't know. To me, it makes sense to allow kids to have some work, and that we have apprenticeships and that we teach them through work. I think we need to make work safer for everybody so that even kids could do it, not make the dangerous work available only to a certain class of people that we don't care about as much.
Andreas says yes, the child labor.
I think that there's some gray areas, because it's like, okay, if they're working, are they earning money? Do they pay taxes? How many rights come with the responsibility of being a productive member of society?
Well, taxation's theft. I think we need to get rid of taxation. When I was in Germany, I found out that until you're 25 years old, they give you like $300 a month.
Where does that come from?
So if a state has institutions which allow for corporations to work in that country, and the state has resources and is producing its own wealth because of tariffs and trade and everything else like that, then the state itself should be making enough money to have a sovereign wealth fund. In Europe, this is common, right? We talked about Denmark and Norway. They have so much natural gas and oil reserve that every citizen gets. I got a friend in Brazil who watched the show. He gets a dividend from his country, right? And because they, as a state, can decide where the value is, they think having German kids be born in Germany and raised German into the economy would be a benefit. So they help mothers have kids, and Austria is starting to do this as well. And then they're helping the kids themselves by giving parents money to raise the kids until they're 18. But then the kid can take that money at 18 until 25 themselves, right? And so this makes it so kids are able to go to college for free, essentially, because not only are they not paying for the school, but they can afford a cheap apartment somewhere. And then this radically accelerates education in the country and makes the greater population. It's refining of your resources. Your people are resources. So if you refine them, it benefits you. You could call that communism. You could call that capitalism, because it's both, right?
Yo,
it's
Andreas,
essentially
let's eliminate taxes from it and just
Taxation
talk about
instead.
like the rights that they would get. Like, what sort of rights would a company being able to work, I guess?
I think that's a great question. Like, I think, would it be different for a kid? I think you have certain we accept that children don't have the same self-determination, and then we want to protect them until they're a certain age from exploitation.
Mm-hmm.
We want workers to always be exempted from exploitation, right? Isn't that kind of the idea? Is you want workers? I mean, ironically, the whole world sort of supports the idea of the worker. I just saw Vance talking at the AI summit about how AI should be helping workers. So I think if we look at Trotsky's approach to workers' rights and to healthy working conditions, and you look at corporate social responsibility, then you can build BIC lighters, right? BIC. I one time was in a class studying business, and I was like, I'm going to do a corporate social responsibility report, and then I figured I'll do it on BIC, right? Because BIC, obviously it's got to be terrible. They make these plastic lighters. They're disposable.
I love those lighters.
You figure it must be destroying the economy, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Wrong.
100%.
Wrong.
No,
BIC's,
they're good for the environment.
BIC sent me, because I asked for the CSR report, BIC sent me a friggin' 900-page or 2,000-page book. It was bigger than a 18th century Bible. And it shows all of their corporate social responsibility. And it's amazing. Because what BIC does is they'll go to Portugal or to France, but they'll go to like a poor region of France. They'll find an old factory that's shut down, or they'll refurbish a part of the town. They'll pay people a living wage in that area, and they'll revitalize communities that used to have other corporations in them or used to be Soviet factory towns. And they donate to the communities. BIC doesn't just make lighters. They make pencils. They make razors. They make BIC pencils. We forget this, but we use them in school all the time. So BIC is one of the greatest companies for benefiting the communities. And that's the whole point of it. Like, people all over the world need fire, and they need pencils, and they need to shave sometimes. So they produce products that everyone needs. And it's interesting because they have a social responsibility while also being capitalist. And there's no reason why a kid couldn't. I don't think that they have kids working in Portugal, but there's no reason why a kid couldn't work in a BIC factory. It's completely safe. Anybody could do it, right?
Yeah. So let me ask you though, is there like a real need for, is there a need for such opportunities in America? Because I don't know, because back to what you were saying about education, did you agreed with Vivek, right? When he made that really self-destructive tweet about like the American culture and their relation to work, and how it's like our big problem is our culture. It's like people are just lazy, which I think is like really wrong. But I mean more than that, to be honest.
Vivek Andreas Xirtus. I had a response to him recently as well, though, because on one hand, I could agree that what he said was true, that we need to have objective goals, and you can't grade on a curve, and you can't just say Americans deserve things that they don't deserve. And there are certain businesses that are going to need the best, and America's not training people to do that. So we need to change our culture. If we changed our American culture to value those things, we would be greater benefited. And it might even be worth importing people that have those cultural values, because we've been importing people with other cultural values, which are worse. So if we're going to import people that have valuable ideas that we can work with. The problem with that, though, is he wants to really grade people on whether or not, like he, for instance, said like Americans should pass the same citizenship test that Europeans or the immigrants do.
Damn, dude.
And I was like,
harsh, bro.
I agree on one hand, but the problem is what happens when they don't pass? Are you
going to social studies test? Like, just go to school, man.
Oh yeah. But does that mean you're not American if you don't pass? Because that's not what that means. And I think that's the biggest argument that people have against Vivek, is it's not what he's saying doesn't actually affect reality. You can have your opinions on people. You can say we should chastise people, we should socially shame people, but you can't pretend that people are less American than you just because they don't have your own values. I mean, This is something I've experienced in my life. There's so many people in America that don't speak English. I mean, there's millions of people that speak Chinese in California. There's tons of people that speak French in Louisiana still. German is spoken literally minutes away from Kurt. Right now, you go into the back of the woods behind American Time Machine's house, you'll find Amish people speaking German. And to say that they're not American because they don't know the intricacies of our bureaucracy, that's just it's a categorically false statement.
Yeah, but I think also like
gatekeeping.
Besides, I mean, the hard thing is like trying to brute force change the whole educational paradigm to encourage like, you know, kids to just, I don't know, be like less sleepovers and more work and more studying. Like, yeah, you could try that. I don't know if that'll work. I think what is more than likely going to happen is like self-sufficiency is going to be more encouraged. Like, I think the new thing that people are going to be educated in is like how to use automated agents to like do everything in your life, basically from job hunting to like setting appointments to paying bills. Like
Vance pushed that idea yesterday with Pharrell Williams, which I thought was interesting. Pharrell Williams and Vance at the International Summit in Paris.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm just saying, like,
No,
these, if you just think about it, like a lot of people would be like, why would I pay for this half-baked, like, language model service? Well, technically speaking, if you could use these like products to make a little bit more than how much you spend on it every month, then you just basically let that rock and you could just repeat that process over and over again. Like, that's residual income, which I think is the idea that's going to start spreading amongst people, even content creators. Like, they'll basically be able to, like basically what you do, have a robot slave to just pump out, like,
I need an army of robots. I need 10,000 terracotta robot slaves.
You should check out N8N, like the letter N, the number 8N. It's just one of those like AI agent managers that don't require you to really code or anything. So I think like things like that is going to be really good. And the learning curve is the learning curve is really not steep at all. And APIs can connect to it, which is really cool.
Oh, this is kind of like that Automator app that Apple made like 20 years ago. I remember when they did that, the nodal programming Automator. I'll look at that. But okay, let me read the thing really quickly. So Vivek actually said, just to make the quote right, every high school senior should pass the same civics test that we require of every naturalized citizen. This shouldn't be controversial. To which I say, or what? They are citizens, whether they pass your test or not. They are citizens, whether or not you find them useful or submissive. That's the controversy. I think that's kind of what I realized, because at first I was more on Vivek's side until I realized really what he's saying and I mean what he believes. And I don't completely agree with him because, you know, while you might want to aim your world to a certain way, you might want to educate and groom people to a certain degree, to a certain place. You don't get to just write them off. You know what I mean? Like, you don't yet. Maybe in 100 years, maybe in 50 years. I mean, I know we're in this 21st century dystopia, and maybe we should just put people in helicopters that we don't like and drop them off in Antarctica with the parachutes and just have them colonize new places for us. Maybe we should just force people to be useful to us, but that's not as American as it sounds, you know, I think.
Yeah.
And usefulness means so many different things these days. You know, there are kids making millions of dollars streaming Roblox or some shit. You know, it's because like media,
real money is
a powerful economic force now. Everyone's just so hungry for content.
Well, the real resources ultimately, it's always going to be people. As long as you have more people, then you have the basis of everything from labor to content. People are like the most important resource, I guess, as far as we're concerned. So if you could if you could foster and cultivate a lot of relationships and build communities, no matter what you do, I guess that's the trick to sort of, I don't know, doing interesting shit with other people.
Oh man, nobody voted for Elon Musk, they say, but who voted for Kamala in the primaries? The whole thing is confusing me so much. I don't know. Andrew, do you have any thoughts on, oh, he disappeared. No, it's okay. I was going to ask you if you had thoughts, because you think about social well-being of the worker, right? What do you, I mean, because in America right now, we're headed into this weird place, and you just talked about Roblox, but I saw the South Park last night where they need handymans from multiple dimensions in the Pandaverse. So, I mean, what do you think about like work itself and reality of workers' rights and the worker state and the workers' paradise?
Well, funny enough, I think that the popularization of workwear among fucking hipsters and shit was actually a psyop to get millennials into the trades. Because right around that time, I've also like, you know what I mean? It's like people don't want stolen. Well, some people are into the stolen valor thing, but some people are like, oh, I'm wearing Carhartt. I got to actually, get a job as an iron worker. Like I know so many, like a lot of my friends are in the trades, and it's also
because they bought a Carhartt jacket.
I gotta make beer. I gotta straight up make some beer.
Yeah, there's that, and then they get tired of working in restaurants. That's also like another big thing. Only teenagers can really survive working in retail unless they've ascended to the status of a manager or an owner.
If you're gonna make beer, do it right. Get a Fermentosaurus. You can get a cheaper one of these from AliExpress for like $60. It's the same thing if you want. Fermentosaurus is a great BEP plastic free. BEP free, it's not the bad plastics. Yeah, BPA free. And basically the way this works is it has this where the culture goes in the bottom, and then you have your hops tea at the top, and then there's actually a spout even. So you can even test spout this as it goes on. It's a 9.5 gallon, 35 liter tank. If you're into making beer or something like that, just saying. Fermentosaurus.
Could you make kimchi in there?
I'm sure you could do that, but I would make kimchi in a giant 5-gallon paint bucket.
Clay pot too. That'll work.
The clay pot's probably better. Koreans, I trust you far more than myself. But if you have a bucket and you do your cabbage and you soak properly and you put a wet washcloth over it, it allows it to burp and to ferment. And you check that for like a week, you can do pretty amazing things, actually. I would recommend everyone get really into fermenting. Fermenting's probably the greatest.
And it goes good with beer.
Fermenting everything is important. You should ferment your cheeses, your meats.
Have any of you ever done like a batch of kombucha before?
Oh, yeah. Dude, Burning Man kombucha. I made kombucha kila. So instead of using sugar, I used agave syrup. Agave. Yeah. It was incredibly brutal. It was strong. But it was good. And I took my pad to Burning Man, and I drove around the playa in a circle with the windows down, and I made Burning Man kombucha kila, where it kind of picked up on kind of the same way that the Trappist monks would leave the windows open so that the Belgian breads made in the morning, that the yeast would rise and they'd go through the windows, and you have a copper rim so that everything that is killed by the copper rim. But yeah, it worked incredibly well. And I think it was some of the best kombucha after that. I mean, I kept that spore going for like 2 years, and I felt rather healthy. Although I think you should also be careful about drinking kombucha every day. Apparently that can, you should do the thing where you take a couple weeks off every couple of weeks if you're eating a lot of probiotics of a certain kind, because you can definitely clean out your gut fauna, and you probably need some of that. Wait, but I wanted to also ask Kurt about suffering, because, Kurt, you work, and a lot of the time I'll be like, hey, let's do a show. Let's talk about your dreams and your feelings. And you're like, I can't. I got to work. And I'll be like, no, but let's make some art. We'll make some music together. Let's run off into the field together making music. And he's like, I can't. I have to work. And then I'll be like, well, okay, you're going to release a new album, right? You're going to put out some new music. He's like, no, never again. I can't afford it. They're not paying me for that. They're only paying me to deliver pizzas. So like, talk to me about suffering as an artist and all that, and capitalism. What do you think about all this stuff, you consumer?
Can you make it more? That's pretty general.
Your cable.
Do you want to narrow that down at all?
I mean, wouldn't you rather narrow that down?
Sure. Why not? Now I was talking to my coworkers, and I was like, listen, guys, apparently they had a fight. They had a fight with it's a family-owned business, so it was kind of like a family fight. They had their son delivering pizza, and we had a snowstorm. And I won't get too far in the details, but I was like, guys,
but he ate a lot of pizza in the snow instead of delivering pizzas.
Guys, if I die giving people their hot cheese, I'm actually happy with that death. You know, like, can you imagine the fallout that's going to happen? So I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to drive this hot fucking cheese that people are too lazy to get themselves, or apparently they can't go to the grocery store and cook for themselves during a snowstorm. So it's just like you can call that nihilism. It's not nihilism. It's just like, this is the world we built. Like, I can't do anything about it. I literally can't solve all the stupid problems that we've created. So it's literally I'm in debt making the most money I can make, literally just being at a restaurant. Like, that is embarrassing as a society. I like, I'm not even criticizing. It's just like, this is reality, and it's so hard to communicate that this is reality to people. It's like people get so far into their own echo chambers. I call it an echo chamber, but it's really, you know, socially, we are just really far up our own ass. And it's like, how do we pull our heads out of our big tight asses right now and realize, like, what is going on? I don't know.
Isn't it kind of cool? I mean, by the way, your cable's a little scrunchy, but isn't it kind of cool? Because it's like McDonald's. So McMarxism, we've talked about this. We have a big red flag and has a gold M instead of a hammer and a sickle, but it's an automated machine that sells and pays people to juggle pieces of hamburger ingredients. That's all it is. The machines make the stuff. They have these giant tractors. They have this globalist agenda. They have commodities, resource trading around the world. They have land management. Some of these places don't even have people running them, but for the most part, they hire some people from that area to then sell things to people in that area. And it's just creating money, right? How cool is that? McDonald's is amazing. I mean, there's no reason for people to buy the things or to work there, and yet they do. So, I mean, isn't that kind of cool? Like, isn't that nice that isn't Domino's and Pizza Hut and Pepsi?
It's cool glorious? If you're a sadist, I guess, but like, I think Andreas is just a little bit of a sadist. I'm not here to ridicule anything. Like, I'm reading one comment, victim consciousness. Like, what? Like, yeah, someone asked for my thoughts and I'm giving them. I'm literally not attacking people by saying these things. It's just like, this is what my observation is.
You're like, I feel like the victim here. Come on.
It's like, I don't feel like a victim. I'm literally putting my life on the line so people can get unnecessary food. That is the factual reality of what is happening. And like,
yeah. Delivering pizza is statistically more dangerous than being a police officer.
Right.
That's a fact.
It is. It's dangerous. You have to travel all around the town faster than a police. Police can cruise. You know, they have nice cars. You have to use your own car a lot of the time to deliver pizza. They used to have pizza delivery vehicles.
And you're a target as well. Like, pizza delivery guys get held up every now and again. You know.
True.
No one's trying to fucking actively people target cops far less than they target, you know, the guy with money and pizza.
I feel kind of brave and violent when I do my job. That's the upside. I'm like, oh, you want to steal my money? I will literally die before you get my money. It's a heavy fence. It's a high fence. You know what I mean?
Sorry, my mic was muted. But are we talking about slave morality / resentment right now?
Maybe.
Yeah. Going back, yeah. I'm back.
It is like slavery. It's like, we create a McDonald's, it produces all the food, you juggle it into people's hands, and then they give you money. I mean, like, we're just hiring people to sell things. There's no reason except for the fact that they need in the moving of fluid liquid currency.
It's like an IRL app.
Yeah, there's really, because they're not doing that much to make a McDonald's, but it's doing incredible things for the economy. Right, it's giving people work and it's taking money from people. It's reorganizing that, and I mean, I don't know. You could do the whole thing for free, but like, isn't it interesting?
This reminds me.
Rate the health of an average McDonald's worker that you see when you walk into McDonald's on a scale of 1 to 10. What's the average? Be honest with us. 1 to 10. What is it?
Like
a 6? McDonald's employee. What are you trying to say?
If 0 is dead, I would say maybe
unhealthy.
A lot of people I see at McDonald's, I think, are about a 6. I mean, I see a lot of rather healthy Mexicans working at McDonald's. Yeah,
I worked. Average, maybe.
A lot of healthy Mexicans I see working. I haven't been to a McDonald's in 15 years, to be honest.
Okay,
Well,
that's why you're so blind to the reality of the situation.
I did though in Austria walk through.
That's
a
different.
McDonald's
That's
to use their
completely
bathroom.
different.
Okay, all right.
Austrian McDonald's is like, fucking a 4-star Michelin restaurant, basically.
It is.
Yo, but,
And that's what it can be.
McDonald's is just like the polished version of the model, but really it's like all the businesses that poor people rely on are really the most profitable, like laundromats. It's like
Dollar
low
Tree.
cost. Yeah, and like bodegas.
Like
or
I
liquor
really
stores.
think if the total collapse of society ever happens, it's because the owners decided to shut off all the corporations because they weren't happy with the 30% margin. They wanted to 50, and they just can't handle that kind of risk by keeping a business open for only a small amount of ridiculous money. They need a much larger amount. I think if you actually look into the process of what's actually happening, it's like it's really much darker than what people realize, and the end result is like that type of system can only subsume itself after so much time, and you can't even spend time warning people because they're not going to listen. It's just like, well, that's where things are headed, and you can't save people from themselves. Don't force people to listen. Just there's an aspect of you just have to let it happen. You can't even redirect the karma. Like,
but what do you like better? Do you like it better like the Soviet soup kitchen where the food is free and you have to work sometimes for the state for free so you can have access to the free stuff? Or do you like it where the food is cheap and you get paid poorly in order to get? I mean, how different is the McMarxism from the real Marxism? Like why and which is more efficient?
The food's not even that much. It's almost cheaper to cook for yourself than it is to eat fast food these days. The exception is pizza. It's because, pizza at the grocery store is still, for some reason, just as much as getting it delivered to your house, basically. If we're doing price per weight. But yeah, no, fast food like Wendy's, McDonald's, it's not even, it's more, you're only paying for the convenience of getting it quickly. You're not even saving money getting it quickly anymore. And I feel like there was a time.
For Peter and Paul, robbing Peter to pay Paul. But if you're looking at it, like the people are getting the service and the people are providing the service because you have people working there and people buying there. It seems to me that you have essentially the McMarxist soup kitchen. It might be something that you can make cheaper. You could make it easier for people to have access. I think it's a great idea for everyone to have access to $1 hamburger.
Yeah,
I mean,
but everyone's middlemaning something, though, right? It's like my landlord doesn't work my job to keep this house that I live in. You know what I mean? But I'm middlemaning it and making a living doing it.
You know what I really liked? I really like the civic way to do it, where it's you have like places where people live just naturally grow within the infrastructure, like naturally grow fruit trees and fruit plants and stuff, so people will just always have access to food. I mean, maybe that's good. Maybe we don't do that. Maybe we don't do that for a good reason. But I also did hear that some cities like purposely plant male trees.
Mm-hmm. They totally do, and they don't want rats in New York to have access to fruit trees. That's a big excuse. I still think it's worth doing, though. I think you could spray plants with paprika water, and then most of the time animals wouldn't want to go near the trees. But the question still remains, is it conscription versus capitalism? Because you either get conscripted into the Roman army, and as a Roman citizen, you're provided free bread, or you choose where you want to work. You end up working at McDonald's, and then McDonald's gives you $1 hamburger. And it's like, do you want to be forced to work for free services, or do you want the opportunity to work as much as you want to work for as little money as possible for a cheap service, right? I feel like it's McMarxism. Is
there a third option?
That's a question. What's the third option? Is there a third option?
I don't think Marxism is explicitly like trading your labor for access to state services. Isn't
fake capitalism, fake communism, fake burger? Yeah,
isn't the goal of communism just in theory, purely in theory, like for there to be a stateless, classless society? So there's no state that you're, conscripted into, like working for, exchanging your labor for.
Yeah, there's Burger Kings and McDonald's, and neither one has the monopoly of violence. You can work at Pepsi, you can work at Taco Bell, Pepsi's Taco Bell. I think that's the idea, is that you have, instead of states, you would have corporations or Gewerkschafts or, labor unions, Soviet labor unions, right? That's what McDonald's would be.
If they were self-regulating, sure.
Yeah, if you're
so
forced
big,
to work
they
for
have to be.
corporations, well, you realize how much of a cult, the corporations kind of become and how much they are, self-regulating and how bad that self-regulation is. Like, think about how much it's a lot of people haven't worked at corporations and they don't really understand what it's like. There's a slow creep into the professional life into everyone's personal life. It's like for a while you could post on social media. Now it feels like you can't really post on social media because no matter where you work, it's like your boss is trying to add you, and like if you post something, you're like, oh, did you see what so and so posted? So it's like every viable path we've had to express our freedom of speech has been taken away by our employment. Like that's functionally what has been happening, and it's hard to communicate that to people that have never worked at somewhere so basic as Taco Bell. Like that shit happens everywhere. A parallel I'm drawing is like, so the NBA. Sometimes I watch the NBA. A lot of people complain about Bronny James. Look at all that nepotism. I think a lot of the people that complain about that, they feel so powerless about the nepotism that's happening like 20 times worse in front of them, that as soon as a big entertainment medium, it's okay to let loose your feelings because you can't do anything about what's happening right in front of you. So we live truly in a society that's really about it's a fake meritocracy. It's something that presents itself as a meritocracy, but a lot of the things that you do for merit don't actually gain you any social value or standing. And once you realize these, I think realizing these things can make you, free. It's a very freeing thing to understand, that's the process. Then, it's like if you understand what's really going on, then you can just really do whatever the fuck you want and kind of be, somewhat happy. But it's sometimes it's easier to live in that, pre-presented dream world, the pre-presented Matrix. The Matrix is kind of real because we didn't have a Super Bowl 100 years ago. We invented it. We didn't have a stock market 300 years ago. We invented it. We get presented capitalism as if it exists in nature, but there is no animal that has a stock market. We invented it. It's like,
yo, Kurt, I have a response to that. Kurt, can I just ask you, what actually makes you happy in spite of living in this fucked up Matrix? Like, what is there anything that you engage in? Because I'll personally, I'll tell you, I have trouble with that.
And guitar, I don't know.
I mean, I have trouble finding it. Yeah.
Hey, thanks. Things that bring me joy. I wouldn't be here if I didn't experience joy. I think that's statement number one. I sound really salty all the time, and really. So sometimes me feigning saltiness over everything and being a troll, that kind of makes me happy. I'm really good at hiding it.
Okay. Yeah. All right. No, that's a good closed self-sufficient system. I mean, I'm just asking because I don't know if if you could ask people to jive with this, but I've tried to find happiness in material things, which is what we're talking about: more money, more freedom, more time, more efficiency or whatever. But every time I tried to seek those things, it was always a dead end. Maybe I just didn't go far enough. Maybe I just didn't learn enough. Maybe I didn't work enough hours. Maybe I didn't make enough friends. I don't know. But I think it's I've only found some semblance of happiness when I just don't want anything. It's when I could be grateful for whatever I have, whether it's abundant or scarce. If I could just say thank you I'm thankful for having this, that makes everything that's the seed to making everything better, when with your outlook. So even I don't know, I feel just saying thank you for what you have right now. You could always want more. It's okay to want more, but I think it's also important to say thank you for what you have, and then that gives you the tools, the emotional tools to be able to get more ultimately.
For sure.
I think it was really appropriate to bring up LeBron and the Matrix, because LeBron sort of pads his stats by breaking the rules. He's the GOAT with an asterisk. How many extra steps has that guy taken in his whole career?
Don't ruin my idol, man. It's I don't have many idols. I just like watching LeBron James. It's
yeah, he's entertaining for sure.
Yeah.
Just he's also the king of traveling.
He's also huge, so he can take like 2.5 steps. Once he comes off, the end of that second step, he covers a lot of ground doing that. So yeah, sometimes he does travel, but sometimes it looks like he's traveling, and then you like see it and like, oh, it just looks like a travel, but it wasn't actually a travel. But it's also modern.
He's gaslit us so many other times that the times that he's very close to actually forming to the rules, that it's like that extra little. But no, I get what you're saying. Sorry, I'm just poking the bear.
No, go ahead, Andreas. You have something.
I don't know. Nothing important. I was looking. I mean, I know RFK Jr. is about to be confirmed tomorrow. Hopefully, I've just been thinking about that. But to me, it seems like there should be more hope, because this is a critical time when you're able to interact so directly with the president or with the politics. You couldn't do this with the Clinton administration. You certainly couldn't do this with the Kennedy administration. It was impossible to do this with the Roosevelt administration. Before democracy, there was no even conception that you could interact with your leaders and see how you could be part of the government. And we're seeing these 19-year-old kids fixing the Federal Reserve and Doge. I mean, to me, it seems like a window into a time. And we talked about this all of our lives. Hey, the system's collapsing. The world's falling apart. It's a conspiracy. We need a new system. Well, now we're here. And if you don't want to be your own futures dictator, despot, then you need to now start working on the solution. We pointed out the problems. Maybe we could continue to do that. But we really should be trying to work towards, okay, what are we going to end up with in 20 years? Because it's either going to be more hangings on daytime television than Star Trek predicted and Starship Troopers world with fascism and everything else, or not. And we should probably be working towards figuring out, like, are we going to have food for everyone? Because we could really end suffering. We have so much efficiency, so much technocracy. We could end suffering. I mean, on the abstract idea of whatever that means, we could take away the suffering of children and of workers and of everyone. So to me, it seems like a good time to start focusing on that, trying to figure out, okay, can we use any of these things, or do we have to get rid of all of it? Because we might just get like a nuclear bomb, wipe out all of the corporations, go back to a reset, be living in huts or living in mud huts. Or maybe we say like, hey, like Fidel Castro and Che Guevara, like let's move into the government building. Let's use the government building. Let's move into the McDonald's. Let's use the McDonald's. And either we're saying, don't do that. It will corrupt and destroy you to even be part of that system. I think Genghis Khan and Attila the Hun both, Attila the Hun especially would go into towns and burn them down. He's like, go in, tell everyone to leave. You guys have to walk out of your houses and go out to the field. And then they would destroy the town. That way there was no more, particularly cities, because he thought that cities were destructive to the natural way of life, and it made why do politicians exist? Why are they corrupt? Well, cities. So let's just wipe them off the face of the earth. Maybe that's what you're saying, and we need to go back to this sort of anti-techno Luddite Maoism, Amish Maoism. Maybe that's what you're saying, but I don't know if that's true. I think we might be benefited. I mean, when I see that there are like McDonald's has like touchscreen AI systems, they're using SCO military grade Unix. There's just so much more to that system. It's hard for me to say, oh, it's the worst thing and we should destroy it, because it's like they used all of that, all the incentive of money and everything else to build the system. So should we just sacrifice the blood, sweat, and tears of all the workers and all of the suffering people? Or can we find a benefit in that? Can we turn? That's why I think it's interesting that Europe has healthy McDonald's and that RFK, everyone's freaking out. RFK is this health guy and he's talking about McDonald's. But to me, that seems like a really good step, because if we're trying to make the lowest common denominator the healthiest option that it can be, that seems like each according to their needs. It seems to me like, I mean, what you said earlier, Trump-Leninism, that Trump is more Marxist than people realize.
I hadn't heard that take. I missed that part, but that's an interesting.
I call Trump a communist.
He is.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Hold on. Well, because it's like they're talking about we only have like 2 or 3 years before we can like consolidate global power and join the Galactic Federation of Light.
Mm-hmm.
According
15,
to
yeah.
however, it's like
How
space
long
force has been around since the 70s.
How long did you say? How long do you think until the
2027? I think was the figure that I heard. There's some kind of contract drafted up with like the benevolent aliens, and if we don't fall in line quick enough, then we're sort of at the will of the not so nice ones, possibly.
The reptilians.
Yeah, well, there's a few different reptilian ones, I guess, and there's some that are meaner than others, and the ones that are the meanest are the ones that are not psychic or something, because only like certain non-human intelligences have like cracked through that and have like an innate psychic ability. Some of them have like a artificially enhanced psychic ability. I was listening to some whistleblower, like he was either like read into something real or he just got like psyoped for 20 years by his the people who are above him. But yeah, no, they were talking about how the secret space program, how we have people that have been like sent into space on our ships, the reverse engineered alien technology. And
my intuition tells me we have access to all the psionic abilities based on like ancient texts and ancient practices.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know why every time like aliens come up, I always think about like ancient spirituality and esoteric traditions and stuff. And I feel like it's intuitively, I feel like it's linked some way, somehow. I'm not an expert, but I just feel it,
Well, that's why this is like a battleground of sorts for all those, other players, wherever they're from, whenever they're from, whatever sort of alternate reality they.
Yeah, their source is it could be Lucifer, it could be God, it could be AI. It's like
this is like a crossroads, a huge like interdimensional, interplanetary, intergalactic, spiritual crossroads.
Intertime space, because it seems like we're hitting a point where the future is affecting the past and everything that we're talking about. I mean, these are all goals for us. We're talking about gods and devils and things, and like these are goals for human realization. People that want to become Ubermensch, they want to become gods. People want to become something. I don't know. You saw this article about the quantum entanglement breakthrough, that they're thinking that they can entangle with quantum computers, multiple computers from multiple dimensions or multiple times. And this might be the first way that we're able to send data from the future back to machines in the past. And if you can do that, then you can send directions on how to make your computer see hypertext, right? So this is why HTTP is so important in 89 and why you can send plans back to build the i386 processor as big as you have to build it in the 50s. And this whole idea that we're pipelining technology from 2040 back to 1940s, 1947 even, and that we have a project Looking Glass, so that we can actually communicate through computers with ourselves in the past. And that seems like 27 is the Stargate project to 2040, right? 2040 is the Phoenix event. But yeah, quantum breakthroughs.
Andreas, are you ready for the quantum breakthroughs?
I'm as prepared as I think I can be, but I'll be surprised in 2040 how different I am. I'm sure the world will change a lot more than we're changing so fast, right?
There's one thing I'm going to stay away from. I'm definitely going to stay away from microchips in the brain. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
I'm just not sure. Even I think that's funny. Like I think they're telling us about hardware so that we're not afraid of the software.
Yeah, I mean,
they're like, hey, don't even worry about 5G because let's worry about you volunteering to put a chip in your brain. The idea that you couldn't be radio controlled without the Neuralink is ridiculous.
I was going to say it's probably redundant.
I think it's at first going to be useful for them to study the human brain with the Neuralink.
Yeah,
but very quickly that technology will end up being wireless without any sort of need for the chip itself.
If it already isn't, I feel like they've already,
And that's the other question about how different is AI from books, because teaching people to read, and I mean, I think it's an artificial intelligence of itself, music even, that Kurt doesn't think the way Kurt would have thought as a caveman, because Kurt was taught about music. He has ways of thinking which are artificial. They're not natural to Kurt. Right. And so we might look at the same thing with leftist college kids. That's an artificial intelligence. They were taught an artificial ideology, and not just ideology, philosophies. We talked earlier about this Chinesey. If you guys remember Chinesey. Yeah. this idea that words in Chinese have a sort of intended meaning. You see fire, you see 2 fires on top of each other, it means it's hot. You see 3 fires on top of each other, that means it means flames, right? And there's a number of symbols. You get 20,000 symbols out of 1,000, out of 200, out of really 8 important things you have to kind of learn. Mouth, person, fire is, look at the person versus the person on fire. And tree, also related to person. And then window, which is similar to mouth. And then door is the window and door together, right? So as you start realizing combinatory symbols make up Chinese language, you can read Chinese because of the combination of ideas. But, a mouth with a person in it is a prisoner, etc. These are really practical ways of thinking. 3 trees is a forest, of course. But if you didn't know that, would you naturally think this? No. And so 1 billion Chinese people have been taught a logic or a rhetoric that's not completely natural. This is an unnatural way of thinking, but you might train them since they're children to just intuit that this is the logical rhetoric. This is the rationale. So by doing that, you're artificially intelligence training your human beings, right? And so I would say anybody who isn't raised by wolves is raised by artificial intelligence at this point.
Well, this is what, if you could treat ideas as intelligences, like ideas as their own intelligence, because we don't really, I said this before, like we don't really create ideas. The ideas are already there in some dimension that we can't see, but it's like, is your mind, body, and soul state in a state where you can actually receive that idea? Otherwise, it's going to find someone else. So if you're like an artist and someone else steals your idea, it's because you weren't in the right state to manifest that idea compared to the next guy, which is, I guess, where the urgency comes from in like art, really, or cutting edge art. Like someone else is going to do this before me because they're right. It's like if you thought of it, chances are someone else did too.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. It's a Neoplatonic idea, Neoplatonic concepts, that concepts are alive. And we're not. We might be alive, but we might just be material husks of concepts. We're influenced, combined concepts that make and channel new concepts. So concepts flow through us like water.
Yeah. Can't fill the cup if it's already full.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff coming out about how like water itself is alive. It is a form of consciousness, or
water could supposedly store data. I mean, we know it responds to sound because it takes different shapes with different frequencies. So it could clearly store information.
Water has memory, apparently.
Yeah, you could program it probably in your body. Maybe do like sound treatments that fuck with the water in your body to either strengthen your constitution or weaken it. So it's like if you have like the media blasting like just spiritually detrimental music to you constantly, it's like a subtle shift, but it's just going to make you more anxious, make you make bad decisions, make you feel anxiety about like visceral things like sexuality. I mean, this is all just like tinfoil hat shit, but
that's why I only drink Fiji water from a certain factory where they're always listening to classical music.
Yeah. And the plastic bottles are EPA free.
Yeah, exactly. God, what was that? Metalocalypse. Have any of you seen the episode of Metalocalypse where the band records to water because it's like the purest medium or something, but it has to go through all sorts of really toxic industrial processes for them to even accomplish that? It's pretty amazing. They're just like, water, it's so natural,
They needed heavy metal to
recording the song to water.
They needed actual heavy metal though in the water, so they had to go to a nuclear power plant. Heavy radiated metal. That was pretty good. I like Metalocalypse.
It's a good show.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. What else we got? You want to talk about werewolves or
werewolves?
I don't know.
No, I mean we covered. Well, as far as current events go, we're just like waiting around to see what happens. Because like everything just gets cut off suddenly, right? Like there was the whole drone mystery, and then we just stopped talking about that. UFOs, I think, are like still a thing, I guess.
I think it was us. I think that's still pre-programming for the false flag, right?
They keep talking about Tulsi Gabbard and their concern that she's going to be pro-releasing Assange, right? And a lot of these people are saying, hey, Assange did illegal activities, and so we shouldn't pardon Julian Assange. She was very much for pardoning Julian Assange in her interview or her, the committee hearing. She said, well, if I were getting this job, my job would be to protect national security. So I would not make any efforts to pardon Assange, which I think the way her face looked, I don't know if this is fair, but to me, it looked like she was trying to be clever because she's like, well, it doesn't really matter what I think because Trump's already going to do it or something like that. And I don't know, maybe he's not, maybe he really is saying Assange is like a bad guy for what he did. But I mean, for Tulsi Gabbard to flip like that from being so pro Assange to anti Assange makes me wonder, what do you think is going to happen with Julian Assange? And do you look at Julian Assange as like a wicked puppet like Snowden, or is he actually somehow like a more legitimate version, an answer to Snowden? Or I mean, is Assange a good guy or is he not? I mean,
well, I'm just sketched out that he's still alive, because I know when it comes to like the serious people who unalive people in the government, like if they want to touch you, they will.
Yeah.
And, so I'm just shocked that he's not dead. If he's a serious threat to national security, I feel like he would have mysteriously died a long time ago.
Yeah, I don't think he's been a threat for like 15 years, though. He's so isolated from everything that's going on. But he might have been super useful to the Republicans because he did release Hillary Clinton's emails. He didn't, and also the DNC emails. He didn't release the Republican emails or Trump's emails or anything like that. So at the very least, it seems like that should give you favor to an extent, because those emails really didn't help the DNC. They made it pretty obvious what they were up to, and a lot of people didn't like that. Not everyone cared, but a lot of people were pretty upset, and it put Trump in a major advantage. I think the week or two before the 2016 election, all the Pizzagate stuff and the WikiLeaks really did make Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation look worse than, I mean, we talked about it all our lives, but not everyone did. A lot of people believe that the Clintons were, the good guys up until WikiLeaks.
I think the Pizzagate evolved into like the Epstein thing. So it's like,
and the Diddy thing now, really the Diddy thing. Yeah,
it goes from thing to thing that the internet just trips over. They're like, oh, what's this? And then they do a little digging and they're like, whoa, this is really fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like Drake was like, oh, I didn't get invited to the island, but I got invited to the Diddy parties. So, but one's more liable to, or one's more of a liability to him than the other.
When did Epstein stop doing stuff? Like 2008 to 9 or something like that, right? Because he went to that Cush jail for a while. And so I think around, when did Rock the Vote start? And I think Diddy,
the vote or die thing. I think that was 08-ish. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, this
I
is
think
all
it moves him. He moved in about the same time that Epstein was retiring. Diddy moved in a lot of ways.
But the business we're talking about is blackmail, right? It's the blackmail business, because I think like it's relatively it's efficient. It's an efficient way to control powerful people. I guess that's why they do it, and it's low risk because you already have them by the testicles. So, I mean, I could see why intelligence agencies across the world would be really like into using blackmail, but now it's like it's kind of in our collective psyche now. Like we sort of know it goes on. At least I would hope more people would know it goes on.
Well, it's still
I know that RFK said, please sign this petition for the immediate pardon and release of Julian Assange, the publisher and activist who founded WikiLeaks. This was only this was last year actually. But I think that, we need to see like all of these people were calling for the pardoning of Julian Assange, including the director of national intelligence. I think Vivek, my goal is to reunite this country, and pardoning Trump is a requirement to achieve the same. Same goes for the peaceful January 6th protesters, Julian Assange, Douglas Mackey, and Ross Ulbricht. We're so close to accomplishing all of that. So, I mean, do you guys, how close do you think we are? Do you think that we're going to see Julian Assange pardoned this year?
I mean, if it serves an agenda, yeah.
Totally.
But I mean, it's like, what's the agenda? Who's it going to be? What information does he have that is like the most valuable or the most legitimate?
It might be as easy as that if we have a boring day, there might be a day where the media cycle, because this is the content generating presidency. So if they don't have any content for a day, then this would be great content, and they might be waiting just to do that. but it also could be that there's some value to keeping him from being pardoned, and that's another question. Like, why hasn't he been pardoned the first day? You know,
that is a pickle. I hate to leave, but I got to cut out because I got a meeting where we're deciding where we're gonna donate all this food we collected during the food drive.
So you make it sound boring, but that sounds cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be fun. Like, good things. Just, esteem is built by performing esteemable acts. So, there's just in the onslaught of information that we're experiencing, it's like, oh, maybe if I'm of service to other people, it'll help me get out of my own bullshit.
Who said that? Mao? Pol Pot? Where'd you Trotsky?
I think I picked it up in AA, actually. It could have been Dr. Bob.
Yeah, it might have been Bob. Okay. All right, well, take care, man. We'll see you soon.
Good night. Night.
Love you guys.
Love you too, man.
Okay, you want to talk about Russia a little bit? So Trump and Putin agree for immediate Ukraine peace talks. This was this happened today, right? And they wanted to move. We talked about how they're moving Gaza to Egypt. They want to put the Palestinians in Egypt, and Netanyahu says they can have a state in Saudi Arabia. But Russia simultaneously has, they said very recently that Ukraine could become part of Russia pretty soon, and they're so freaked out by the amount of money that was lost. And he's not even pissed about the money because, obviously they stole $100 billion. We all expected that. But millions of dead Russians and Ukrainians, right? Like, the damage is so insane. They've completely wiped major parts of Ukraine off the face of the earth. And people are living in terror for the last, almost 10 years. Like, since 2014, things have been pretty crazy. And really 2018, I think, it continued to be bad, and the last 4 years has not been any better. So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on what we should do with Russia? People, what do you think about Russia?
I think we should just put Russia in a box, stick it in the attic for a couple months until this whole thing blows over, then take it back out, unpack it, hang it back up, and just let it play itself out. I don't know.
Wasn't that literally what Christmas was with Biden? It was let's just wait on it and see. I'm surprised not more happened during the Christmas period with Russia, because Russia could have been well, America's not doing anything right now. Let's go for it.
Yeah. I just I don't know. I pray for the Russian people, but I also pray for the Ukrainians. I just feel bad that a lot of young boys have to be shipped off to get slaughtered. Kind of sucks.
Yeah, true. Or also
just at home. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I'm just waiting for something of an abundance age where maybe it's enabled by AI, maybe it's enabled by a collective recognition of God or something. I don't know, something. But I'm not going to sit around and just wait around for utopia. I'm just going to try to work on myself. I guess that's really when it comes to thinking of ideas of what we should do about political issues. I guess I really suck at that right now, because the only thing I've been focused on is self-development stuff. I don't know, all I can do is just be in control of how I react to things and work on myself and hopefully be a good influence that way. And also, being, I guess, trying to be self-aligned also helps me approach things I guess more in a balanced way. Because I deal with shit all the time personally, but geopolitically, it's I'm not in control of any of this stuff. At the end of the day, I really can't. All I can do is just control my own habits and whatnot.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's defeatist. I don't think so. I think it's pretty empowering. I think it's.
Well, it's true. What are we going to do about Russia? I mean, it's a ridiculous question.
I mean, I don't mean to say it like
yeah.
that. You know what? I would like to think if I had the means, I would go to Russia right now just to check it out. Let's go to Moscow.
I mean, dude, America right now, this Democrat rep, Shakowski, just said that we need to stop using the word manufacturing because it's sexist, because it has man in it. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like we're in a weird world where we do need a little Russia.
Don't you miss America? Don't you want to come back home soon? Because we have American McDonald's, like you were talking about.
Yeah, America. Great.
Oh, you don't really miss it at all, do you?
I look forward to the opportunities that America, we're in an amazing time. I think that a lot could be done to make America great again. I mean, I know that sounds rhetorical, but I don't know. I don't. I miss people sometimes, but I mean, America's so like, I think of all the dead people. I think of like kids that I knew in high school that are all dead. You know, I'm like in a Facebook group for like survivors of, you know, our high school. There's very few people left, and the ghost ship. And I think of like towns in the Midwest that are fentanyl poison. And, you know, I think of kids in classrooms that are peeing in litter boxes, you know, because the state's domesticating them as pet slaves, you know, for people that were taxpaying Department of Education is teaching people to be slaves. And yeah, red dye number 4. So, I mean, I am excited though. I hate to say all that because I am excited. Right. It's like, wow, America could change. I could care. Yeah. I could like it. Like if we got rid of a lot of the problems, and I see that as the first time that that's even possible. I mean, they want Ron Paul, a guy who I voted for the first time I could vote in 2008, I think, right? Ron Paul, they want him to audit the Federal Reserve. They're talking about ending income tax. They're talking about anti-tax. There's so many things where it'd be impossible not to say America's super awesome. Josh is saying, sounds like you're dwelling on when America wasn't great. And yeah, that's totally true. I definitely am. Although it's not fixed yet. And I have a lot of friends who are concerned, even if they trust and they're happy. They're like, you can't just go into this thinking that you made the world a better place, or that that someone else can make the world a better place. Like, how it's so crazy to think that Trump's going to actually save the world. It's a lot easier to imagine that he's the Antichrist who's making the world better for the apocalypse, right? I mean, that's a lot easier of a thought to swallow.
I see. So would you say at all, like, I don't know, what you talked about, like a lot of your people that died, would you say like any recent or semi-recent losses kind of motivated you to like travel and just get the fuck away from the country for a bit?
Yeah, I think it's good in general for people to go to other places. I think the more you see of other places yourself, the less other people are telling you about those places. And as we've noticed, it's a huge amount of psychological operation and propaganda. You know, I mean, the BBC was getting 8% of its finances from USAID, but probably more from other oligarchs as well. And the more you start to realize that the international media that's presenting stories is controlled. The second best thing to do is to watch conflicting news, like to watch Al Jazeera and BBC or something like that. So you get two opposite opinions on an event is probably important. It used to be cool that you could do that. You could watch Fox and CNN and kind of get like two perspectives on an issue. But I mean, even that's not enough, because that's what they do with the debates. They'll have a fake debate with two friends in the Skull and Bones who will pretend that they're arguing when they're really having a sophist debate, like a classic philosophical debate designed for the audience to come to some conclusion. So one side says one thing, the other side says another thing. And by the end of the debate, America knows what the agenda is, and they agree with it, because instead of thinking it themselves, they've heard the two devils and angel on their shoulder argue it out for them. And that's the digestion. That political digestion for you is, you know, I think kind of dangerous. It's better than having nothing, but it's better to get out into the world and see other places. And everywhere you, I mean, go on YouTube and watch slow street walking videos of people walking through Iran. See what it really looks like in Iran. It's not as bad as they tell you by a long shot. There's women with their hair out all day wearing Western clothes. There's cars being driven by women. There's a lot more open. Like, they had a rule that they were working on 6 months ago. There was that girl who was told by the modesty police that her skirt was too short. She ripped off her clothes. She's walking around in her underwear, right? So, you know, you need to know what the kids in Iran, and these are like old people are dying, man, like everywhere. Like the baby boomers are retiring and dying. So we have these younger people, and a lot of younger people aren't as crazy as them, or as, you know, a lot of people are more open-minded to each other, and we have a lot more progressive people living in Burundi or in Beijing, or so. It's just to say, and it's not the first time. Like, it was true of boomers in the 60s, that they would meet people their own age, like, wow, our governments have told us that we're supposed to hate each other, and we don't hate each other. So I think we could do a lot to dismantle the monopoly of force that is the state by having more relationships between individuals, and your relationships are even controlled, right? Your Facebook lists, they can just shut you out. I've been shut out of Facebook for the most random offenses, just randomly, so that I can't talk to my friends. And it seems like that's part of the plan. But if you keep lists of people's email addresses, phone numbers, WhatsApp, Telegram, all around the world, you can defeat the algorithm that's keeping you isolated, and you can start to break the barriers of propaganda, because all of a sudden you have multiple perspectives. I think this is why Facebook was dismantled after the Egyptian protests. I mean, there was a time when you get 20, 30,000 likes on a post in Facebook. And then the Egyptian revolution happened, and they realized, okay, this was a legitimate reason why we weren't able to sustain the CIA propped up Egypt, and how we ended up with this other government that now we have to take over because people were reading and posting this online. So we need to suppress and monitor to make sure that media can't be used by the people. So yeah, you have to go to places, I think, to actually learn the truth, make a difference, communicate with people. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's also it's a crazy time in Europe right now, because this after Trump's election, everything started shifting, but things were simultaneously shifting in Europe. So seeing how Europe kept itself from having vast progress through multi-partisanism. So are you saying something, Kurt? Sorry.
It's all in my head. Go, keep going.
No, I'm sorry. I was just saying, like, multi-partisanship in Europe, everyone talks about like it's this great thing. They're like, oh, look how cool this is that we have 5 parties instead of 2. That's really going to help. And it doesn't. What it ends up happening is all these parties are able to keep anything from happening. And then you create these fake, these parties are fake. These lines are fake because the friends who run 3 or 4 of the parties end up creating a coalition. So you have this coalition between the Green Party, the Black Party, and the Yellow Party, or whatever, or the Red, Green, and Blue, or the Stoplight Party. They call it the Stoplight Coalition. They literally call it that, the Traffic Light Coalition in Germany. And so if you actually were to elect 41% or 50% of the country would choose one party, that party doesn't have the power to do anything, because they still have to deal with the fact that 3 or 4 parties got 10% or 4% or 5 or 10, 15%, but they together can stop the majority, right? So it's kind of screwed up, and they're working really hard to end the multi-partisanship and make it more unidirectional, which is, of course, what people are freaking out about. They're like, well, populism, that's dangerous. That leads to fascism. How could we don't want democratic populism. That, well, you know what, every time, like, think of some democracies, Iran, Nazi Germany, right? Anytime you let people vote for a thing, Turkey, like they genocide people. Like if you get a you get a majority of people together and you realize there's more of them than Kurds, the Kurds are going to get genocided. So democratic populism is dangerous. You have to actually listen to the socialist authoritarians on that level. I don't know. Yeah. Andreas is too bogged down and too much knowledge. I should probably just shut up. I agree. I don't know. I think too hard. You're right.
No, dude, I don't think there's, I mean, I'm personally about letting people flourish as their favorite version of themselves, but I mean, maybe you should take like a meditation retreat or something. Go to India, like fuck on coming back to America. Just go to Asia. It's like,
I do want to go to Asia. Oh my God.
Just don't stay in India for too long,
Yeah, I got to be careful though, like about gut parasites and everything else as well. I don't know, but at the same time, California has great organic food. We have a culture that's a bit more relatable, I'll start with, but also in some ways I think progressive towards the omega point I want to see. And so in a weird way, I am very American. And I think being away from America makes me like and appreciate and feel America and Americanism and being American far more. Like when I'm in America, I feel so separated from America because I'm trying to be distinct. I'm like, well, these are the differences between my opinion. But if I go elsewhere, I'm talking to Europeans, they're like, oh, you're such a cowboy. You want everyone to have guns. You think there should, like, you're so into free speech. You're like ridiculously into free speech, way more than you need to be. And so, yeah, there are some things about me which are brutally American, almost obligatory. I feel like an obligation to uphold the Constitution and the American values in a weird way. I'm like, we need to, it's not something that just belongs in America. Anybody who was given the opportunity to feel or be raised with that American rhetoric should spread toxically, like man spread, like toxic masculinity. Every country you go to, you should be so obnoxiously American that it makes other people realize, why aren't we doing this? Why are we pretending that we should just submit to the system? You know, we should all demand inalienable rights. We should demand and be belligerent claimants for our freedoms and self-determination. And that is, I think, an American thing. I just don't think every American still believes that anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it also depends on like what you're trying to get out of it. If you're trying to spread like Americanism, which is like, you know, life, liberty, and happiness, or the pursuit of happiness and all that stuff, you could do that. But if you're like legit trying to like learn shit, I think like if you're trying to immerse yourself, or maybe some people just don't want to be American anymore, which honestly sometimes can be a disaster. You know, you have people joining like Islamist extremist groups and they're from like Ohio or something.
Totally.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you, dude. Like America till I die. But I mean, that's probably because I was like brainwashed into being in that program. Yeah.
So I was completely. Yeah. I think America's so cool. Boy Scouts. But I have Paris syndrome about what America is. I don't know, Kurt, do you have the same thing? Like, do you have any love? Like, you talk about all the criticisms as well, but if you would, when you were in Argentina, were you like, well, luckily I'm an American and I have this other way of thinking? Was there ever a point where you felt like the Roman superiority of being an American?
No. I
like how grossed out you were by that. No. Okay.
It's more of confusion of like why I would feel superior. It's like I felt
America is cool. We have these values. We have freedom. We have constitutional freedoms that other people don't have. Even Mark Zuckerberg said.
Okay. How many friends do you have that are 20 something?
More than I should.
Okay. Have you recently asked them how their multi-leg parlay was doing?
No, I did not.
Holy shit!
You're gonna get some answers. You're gonna get some answers, and that's because that's a good embodiment of our system of values. We like degenerate things like gambling and drinking too much and being fat and not going to church. That's our system of values that we have in the USA. It sounds like I'm being overly critical, but it's like what's cultural like beacon do we have to show the world?
This actually. Kurt, you just brought up an epiphany I had recently. I was realizing like where do decent people like actually go to socialize or to be in the world? And because like I'm, you know,
Minnesota.
I came from like, you know, like a punk kid high school background, like a skater kid background. So I've always been into like drinking, partying, getting drunk, going to bars. And then, you know, after a while, you're like, where do the good people hang out? And then you realize they're all in like courses or some kind of like club, you know, like some activity like cooking class or language class or like a martial arts class. AA. Yeah, exactly. Like AA. I mean, AA, you would argue are they probably turn out to be like pretty effective people if they manage to do their shit right.
Sure.
Yeah. So I was thinking like maybe I should like, because there's also the cost. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, I can't afford that. But if you're like a party animal, imagine how much you actually spend on a night out at a city bar. You know, it's like it really does balance out with like time spent, return of investment, and all that stuff. I mean, I'm not saying you should think of it that way strictly. Like you should enjoy it too. But
I mean, Americans did come here in order to demand that people practice their religion at the force of bonfires, right? Like we left Holland, the Mayflower stock people. They went from England because they were too Christian to Holland where they were allowed to do whatever, but then they were surrounded by people that did whatever, right? There were Dutch people that could do whatever they wanted to do, and they didn't like their kids around that. So they brought them to America, and if they worked on Sunday, they would burn them alive, right? I mean, it's America. But then you have this kind of Masonic Rosicrucian thing where like, hey, we could all go there, and we could all do even weirder things. So you start fighting for the freedom for you to worship Satan, but also more generally, like you said, to not go to church. No one's going to burn you at the stake for not conforming. Vivek wants to, but he won't be allowed to, right? you don't have to know the Constitution of the United States to be an American. An American is so much more like a French Arcadian serf than people realize. You just pay your taxes and you get to live in this system, and they don't care what you believe, what you think. They have the craziest beliefs. You could believe you're a woman, you could believe you're a cat. I mean, there's some interesting things about that, the idea of self-realization. And I don't know, maybe it's not the first culture to go through this. I mean, you can think of Iran and India at some point have went through existentialist crises and philosophical searches for meaning, and nihilism takes over your culture. But America has a weird confluence between obligation, duty, and freedom, right? Which is, I think, an interesting, it's like the more freedom you have, the more obligation you have. I think that's a pretty American idea. We don't really, I mean, other places don't push for this idea. Islam means the opposite, right? Islamic nation, the idea is that you are submissive to God completely. And that's not an American idea. America is a very Promethean idea. Similar to communism, the disestablishment of the state eventually. America should lead to a stateless republic where everyone is an equal sovereign American. We're not getting there, where I think there's a war with that idea. But isn't that kind of the idea of the American ideology, that we'd all be free men at some point?
Yeah, and I guess to really make something like that matter within the individual ultimately is they want to express that, I guess, like as a legacy, right? They want to, like, they embody their values, whatever their values may be. It's like they're principles that just basically hold them together. And if they successfully, like, you know, express that, and another person likes them enough to be like, hey, we should reproduce, and then they start a family, and then ideally you pass on the values or the same value system to the kids, and you're supposedly, I mean, that's the greatest fruit of all, right? If you're given liberty to like choose your values and to embody them, and you get to see where it takes you. I mean, there's also like downsides to that, right? Because if there is no like universal enforced system of values, then, you know, you're going to have some people with twisted values, and it's probably not going to turn out right for them, or it's going to turn out right at the expense of someone else, which isn't good, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I think it's like we're past all the material needs. We're eventually going to have to, like, in our own minds, like strip ourselves down. Like, and that's hard to do because I think we all have like traumas and like really bad experiences and really bad losses in our lives, where it's like we identify with that pain like really heavily. And the only way to truly become effective is like you have to clear those points in your chakra, you know, in your whole up and down vertical, or however way you want to look at it. There's like different esoteric frameworks for this, but like because we're all forced to do that now, right? We have everything taken away from us. We've had our cultures taken away from us. We've had our identities taken away from us. We've had our stability, our money. It's like every single time you take shit away from us like this, we get forced into basically periods of like radical self-reflection. At least I think that's what happened to me, because I don't think like I'm a particularly pious person. I don't think I'm like supposedly like prophesized or a chosen one or anything. I just think it's like it could be random, you know, because everyone's different. But after you lose enough like things that your ego could just cling on to, because just the world we live in, it's like everything's just being shown and proven to you as bullshit. Like, oh, everything you thought you were, it's actually just, it's not real. You know, it's just based on an idea that someone wanted to express a certain way. And we're all going to have to contend with that, which I guess is how I found my soul, really. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if that actually happens on a mass scale. I don't know.
Kurt, do you feel like you're could you pick out something about yourself that is so American that it's, if you were born somewhere else you wouldn't be this way? Like, what are some things about America that are unique to, that you feel like, you know, when you were in Argentina and things, like you think about things differently than other people that aren't American? Did you ever discover anything like that?
It's hard to actually say, I guess. I don't know. Every culture comes with its own assumptions, and sometimes they're just that, they're assumptions, and sometimes assumptions get you on the same page, blah blah blah. But yeah, I just don't know how to answer that. It's like I will say sometimes we think I believe the American assumption is like we're very, very categorical. Like I don't think our fluid method of thinking or intelligence is fully expressed, or our emotional intelligence. Like we're very geared towards like your profession is your identity. Like obviously people can think outside of that box, but it's often one of the go-to thoughts about who you are as a person. Like, oh, what do you do for money? That's one thing that feels awkward, I guess. And I just, I just try not to do that in my daily life because it definitely feels dehumanizing. But that's also like a major cultural assumption that we engage in very, very often. So yeah, it's hard to say one culture's like superior to another. Objectively, and also some of our culture as an empire, it bleeds into almost every other nation that is, less, even ones that are far, far less, wealthy than we are. Because like we did the whole Instagram, even the poorest countries, they have, a cell phone or a smartphone ownership rate of up to like 99%. Like it's insane. So these people have Instagram, they're sharing stuff and participating in this whole egocentric commodification of the self that we've engaged in too. So that's definitely bled into the whole world stage. So if I go to Argentina, I saw a major like historical building that was converted into a McDonald's. I thought that was actually, kind of depressing. Maybe the upside is like, well, who knows if that building would have been preserved otherwise, at least something. But it's like it feels so tacky.
Who can afford to maintain the building though, right?
Yeah, right. It's such a weird feeling seeing something like that. But I don't know. I just hope everyone actually, I don't know, just validates the self in ways that aren't Instagram, if that makes sense. I don't know. Like you don't.
What do you think?
You don't need reflections or definitions of yourself to be happy or self-fulfilled or have a positive self-image of yourself. Like, it's like you don't have to scrapbook your entire life to appreciate what you have like right in front of you. That's basically like what we've done. I think a lot of my friends that are getting older now, I see that they're much, much less active on social media. A lot of women too. It's like they spent so many years like getting into that influence culture that it like sapped them of their energy and they just like can't do it anymore. It's weird. So
I think it was also like kind of a positive take on it, like a spin on that. Where it's
what do you think,
it's
Chris?
like there's enough influencers now because there's influencers for everything from fucking cooking to kendama to yo-yo to poi to like language. Porn, whatever. Yeah. So basically, I think it's like when you get to a point of oversaturation of information, you're gonna have people who are able to like synthesize these specializations to do cool shit in their own lives, and they're gonna be like, "Fuck scrolling all day. I'm gonna try more of these recipes that I find," or like, "Fuck scrolling all day. Now that I learned Egyptian, I'm gonna go to Egypt or whatever." I mean, maybe that's a naive, like optimistic look, but
I see that too. It's like Pleasantville. Like you got people that have never seen rainbows before, and all of a sudden you give them a painting book, and they're like, "What? Yeah. You could do that?" I think that's true to some extent. That people are accelerating. I think the Instagram food pictures thing. You can see like food delivery has become prettier and prettier. The way that they organize and present food has become prettier. That might not be the greatest metric, but it's something that shows that there's an evolution and a progress that happens where people start to value something in a different
and you know
way.
what, and there's economic implication. That's why this whole thing is a thing. Like it takes basically one car guy to influence a kid to take like a loan out to get like a tuner car and then start dumping even more money into it, which just stimulates the economy. And that's just one example. There's like tons of
but he learns.
Yeah,
you might learn how to make the car better, and it's still cheaper than going to university. So
yeah,
social media is interesting.
And this also goes back to, I guess, making us trying to condition us to be more productive. Because if we're not doing like a hobby or an interest like that, then we're just out partying, which is ultimately, I think, in my opinion, like more expensive if you just like don't have a limit or anything like that, like a cap. So, but then again, I don't know. Maybe this is all just like cold commodification of things that were once like actually organic and filled with passion. And I don't know. But I learn a lot every day, and I try to put it all into practice as much as I can that I'm actually like into. Like,
yeah.
writing.
Do you like, Kurt? Do you think it's just a mind control thing to keep us down, or do you see it as some sort of a panopticon to help us live the best life that we can imagine for ourselves? Is it really that bad, or is there any benefit? Why are they doing it? Is it just a CIA psyop?
So you could say a lot of things. It's my personal take. I'm not saying this is correct, but you could say our whole drive to advance technology, it's not just rooted in, a survival instinct. Like, oh, we got to worship, the altar of technology, or else we're all going to perish. Like, it's not just that. It's literally, it's like, well, yeah, you could make religious parallels to it. It's like we have nothing to we have a godless society, at least in the Nietzsche sense. None of us can really agree on something. So it's like if we concentrate our energies on like on the hopelessness, quote unquote, of life, that's the assumption that life is hopeless, and we have to make it not hopeless by, advancing medical technology, becoming transhumanists, whatever. That is the thing that's driving, the whole social media thing, something that, doesn't actually help us that much. And getting this, centralized medium in which we can all theoretically be on the same page, but it hasn't worked. It's really just caused a lot of confusion generally. So I think the real issue is not having, the Christ to center, your mental, ethereal energy on, I'm using Christ symbolically, but
Like Steiner.
Yeah. It's like it's been a diversion from that, and it's like, oh, it turns out that causes a lot of problems too. So how do we correct that problem, and is the correction of the problem going to be greater than the problem itself? I don't know. Just
Albert Schweitzer, who was in Africa taking care of soldiers during World War I, French and German and Belgian soldiers that were fighting against Germany. He didn't really care about which side. He just wanted to keep people alive. He wrote this thing about the ethic of the reverence for life. And I would recommend you read it. This idea of that if you look into life and you start to realize what it means to be alive, a big part of it is that I am life which wills to live. And I exist in the midst of a life which wills to live, right? So we're life willing to live in life which wills to live. Life all around is everything. There's a lot of life going on, and that seems like the big unifier that all of life wants to live more. Granted, there are suicidal people. There's all sorts of other examples where suffering has happened, but isn't that the primary reason why transhumanism exists? Not just to post-human, but to transcend the entire possibility of human experience, to get everything out of the human experience you can, and to know what other people are getting out of the human experience, so that you can know about those experiences, even if you can't live them simultaneously. Like, you could know all these experiences. It seems like we're accelerating that so fast. I can see why you'd be scared of that, but it seems also like a pretty good thing, right?
Yeah. And also it's like it's eventually, because right now it seems so cold and commodified because everyone's trying to do it for a living. Like, everyone's trying to push their specialization online in these videos so they could make money. But I don't know, eventually you're going to have people who just make content for the hell of it, and it's actually because they care about it. And I mean, I don't make any of this stuff I do for a living. It's like, I just
sure that's where we're at.
Yeah. I just enjoy it, I enjoy
but do send us money. I mean, please.
Yeah. I enjoy contributing to content for these unhinged people in the chat.
Yeah, exactly. We like you. You guys are great.
Yep.
Sorry, Kurt, I don't mean to cut you off.
It's all good. Bo Burnham wrote a song called Content. Great song. I brought you some content. Yeah, it seems like content, the whole word of content has just become painful. And so, like, yeah, the whole Byung-Chul Han thing where he calls everything basically pornographic. It's like it's why if you get I can't get on Instagram because it's like, you know, I can only watch so many videos where people are just, you know, acting and play acting like, look what I can do with ping pong balls, and it's not the cool things that you see.
like,
you know, like it's not what you see on Pornhub.
Yeah.
It's like the opposite. It's just like the most boring things you can do with ping pong balls. Like,
Right.
and there's like hundreds, thousands of videos of that being produced. Like, who's funding these people to do like such mindless crap all the time? You know?
Do you remember that? You remember that Skrillex song? Skrillex had that song, and it was like, wow, wow, oh my god.
Scary sprites and nice monsters or some shit like that. Probably
you know it. No, but you know the story behind the recording, what that recording is? Oh my god! Did they scream that? Where that's from? That's a real recording. So a little girl was doing cup stacking. And she eventually was able to stack the cup stack. Oh my god. I think this is cup stacking. I think this is
badass.
Yeah, it is. So this is the overall world record. And if you get really good at cup stacking, how many? 4 seconds and we're good. 4.7. That's crazy. World record, okay? And if you do this every day over and over again, you do it faster and faster and faster. And when the kid finally gets the award of the fastest, they just scream, "Oh my god!" I actually think it was not even this one. This is already faster than the cup stack. This is the girl. She does the cup stacking in 7 seconds, and it was the record at the time. And it's crazy because it's not even a record anymore. 7 seconds, it's nothing. 4.7. Oh my god! Oh my god! It's amazing. So the point is that you stack cups more and more often. You do repeating the function. You're practicing guitar every day. Eventually you get faster, better, and better at it. And then the 100th monkey, other people are just as good. Everyone's as good at guitar. And the entire world has a consciousness acceleration where that idea, like we were talking about earlier, that's alive, is strong enough to transcend all consciousness, all mind, all life. And we're getting faster and faster and better and better. So,
what if, you know, that speed is just a distraction? What if, you know, what if you can artistically stack the cups? You know, you don't have to stack them very fast. Is culture just centering everything around speed and accelerationism? And that's when you get, I think that's one of the reasons why so many people, you hardly ever hear a guitar in mainstream music anymore. Hardly ever. You hear it like in indie bands, but we just got so tired of literal decades of people going, look how fast I can play. Isn't that impressive? And like hundreds and thousands of YouTube videos of all these people trying to impress everyone with how fast they can play their guitar. And it's like, why don't you just make prettier notes? Throw some vibrato in there. It's like, at this point, it all just sounds like noise if you just keep trying to do that. So like, why can't things just be pretty and beautiful? Why can't you just go outside? You remember one of my favorite videos? I'm just going to say that one of my favorite videos is the double rainbow guy. Just go out, enjoy a double rainbow all the way across the sky. What was wrong with that guy enjoying that? Why can't, I think all of us are jealous of that man because we can't just go out and enjoy a rainbow. Like
if I had to guess, you're asking like what's the point in it? I think people, gamers specifically, got addicted to speed running. Like, and the reason why you get addicted to it is because when you see the
pointless
pop-up,
unless it's a Sonic the Hedgehog game.
The point is to get as little entropy as possible in a function, because then you can do more things. But yeah.
Also, when they actually succeed in breaking a record, that where like, you know, just any normal person could watch a speed run, like the world's record or whatever. And when you see that pop off moment, that's like the best, like the oh my god moment. You know, like that's where I think people get addicted to that. Like that's why I watch it. You know, it's like I get to see people just flip a shit. Could you imagine just them sitting there? And that kind of evolved into like the video trick shot thing, right? It's like, you know, really, it's just like pointless shit, but it looks impressive. You know, like how many times did you fucking fling that playing card, sit there for like hours and hours and hours just to get it in like a clothing pin or something. But it's supposed to be the fast access to that instant gratification moment. You know, maybe the point is like you play this game so many times that this is the only way you could get your kicks now. But you're right. I agree with you, Kurt. I think that's better. You should enjoy the process. I think it's the process, like the juice is all about the squeeze, so to speak.
Well, we're near the end here. Do you guys want to close up some closing thoughts? Maybe give us.
Let's have Kurt close it up.
All right.
Oh, I'm just taking the reins here. Wow, great to see you guys. Yeah, I happen to have this Wednesday off. Hoping to talk to the guys just because I like them. But yeah, we'll see. My schedule might change every week. I might have talked too much already, but go pet your cats that you love. Go pet your dog that you love. Go tell your mom and dad that you love them. Your wife, your girlfriend that you're probably cheating on. I don't know. But if you love somebody, tell them that you love them. I think that's what's important. You don't have to cause yourself unnecessary pain, but there's also the aspect of like, what if life was just totally easy all the time? There might be part of your subconscious that doesn't want what you say and think that you want. So it's hard to be, authentic all the time for that reason. But yeah, it's think about karma. Just karma is a real thing. You can be a Christian and believe in karma. I think it's an amazing thing. I think if you boil things down, the more time passes, you realize, oh, it's all just karma and spirituality. All this stuff springing up and down and all these life forms, rotating in and out of existence. Given enough time, you'll probably exist again. That's what I think. Check out Terrorist Podcast. Andreas is running this show, so he has a show, and you can check it out. And I might have an album. I might, and it might be really good. It might be the last one I do. Who knows?
Oh, no.
That's such an Oliver Tree thing to say. Never say it's the last album unless you don't actually deliver. Always continue.
It might be my last non-collaboration album. We'll see.
Ooh, we'll have to collaborate way harder. Well, and Chris, you know what to say.
Thank you, everybody. Thank everybody for watching. And sometimes I like a small crew like this. I think it's even better sometimes once in a while.
It's nice.
So yeah, Thank you both for chopping it up, and thank you guys for watching. You guys are great.
My heart goes into you.
They dropped the bomb, cleared up the land, said it was freedom, said it was planned. Now there's neon lights where homes used to stand. The past is gone, don't you understand? They blew up Gaza, built a shopping mall. No more Palestine, just casinos real tall. Came in with a wrecking ball. They blew up Gaza for a shopping mall.
Ooh, thank you guys. Thank you, Memory Man. Thank you, Bikini.
The olive trees, the ancient stones, buried beneath design.
Super chats do help.
Glass and steel, where the children played. A paradise lost, but profits are made.
See you guys next time.
Built a shopping mall. No more Palestine, just casinos real tall. Turned every ruin to a luxury hall. They blew up Gaza, built a shopping